Welcome to Vibrant U from Vibrant Broadband. This video is an introduction to streaming. Vibrant sales representatives Bo and Nathan will show you what streaming is, what you'll need to stream, and what is available. Get ready to learn about streaming your favorite shows on your Vibrant connection.
All right, so here's kind of what we're going to learn about here with the presentation. What is streaming? Why would you stream? What do you need to stream? What is available? And then lastly, we're going to go over some streaming tips, some kind of how-tos or best practices.
All right, so what is streaming? So streaming is a method for delivering your videos or your music over the internet. Many of you may remember before streaming, what you had to do is you had to maybe go out and rent a movie at the video store. If you couldn't do that, you had to download an entire movie, which runs about an hour and a half to 3 hours on your device, on your computer, which took a lot of time and a lot of storage. And really what streaming resembles is over-the-air cable or satellite, like Nathan had mentioned. A lot of you have that or have had that in the past. And it allows you to cut that cord, so you don't have to have cable television, or you don't have to have a dish for your television on your house to get your TV or your movies.
All right, so that was kind of what streaming is. And now here's why stream. Why would you want to stream versus the cable or the dish or whatever you got going now? Here's a few reasons. First, you can choose your programs. So before now, if you had cable, you had dish, you were pretty much limited to what that provider had. If they had certain channels or certain movies, you kind of had that option, or you had to go physically buy or rent something, as Bo mentioned. With streaming, you'll actually be able to kind of pick and choose the programs, the companies, the shows and movies that you want to watch. So you'll have a lot more freedom to choose your programming. No long-term contracts. So I know a lot of people are used to, with cable or dish, to sign a contract, especially when you first get it, or your rate goes up after a while, then you sign another contract to get that rate again. Well, with streaming, almost every streaming service is not bound by any kind of a contract. They're month-to-month services, subscriptions. Some of them are free, but you can come and go as you please. So if one has certain shows you like, and eventually they drop those shows, or you watch all those shows, you can cancel that one and move on to another. So you have a lot more freedom without having a contract. You can watch on demand, and what that basically means is you can watch when you want to watch, when it's convenient. Before, with your current system, you may have to be available at a certain time to watch a show that's on TV or a movie that's coming on TV. With streaming, you can watch those shows, movies when it's convenient for you because they're available. You can play or pause them, stop them, rewind them whenever you want. And then lastly, you can watch anywhere. This is a big thing with streaming, is not only can you watch it on your TV or your couple TVs in your house, however many you have, you can also take it on the go. You can watch it on your cell phones. If you have a tablet or an iPad, you can watch it on there. You can even unplug the streaming device, and we'll talk more about those in a minute, but you can unplug that, take it with you if you're on vacation, or if you have a winter home somewhere else, or you go stay at a hotel or a hospital. You can actually take that with you, and then you have your own shows and movies wherever you go. So you have a lot more freedom to kind of watch where you want. All right, what do you need to stream? What you'll need is reliable internet, preferably 25 megabits per second or above for download speed. So you'll need that for download speed because you're downloading the video from the internet. You'll also need Wi-Fi. So we mentioned earlier, those people that have internet at their home or already have Wi-Fi. If you don't have that, that is something you will need to stream video. You'll need a TV with an HDMI input. And so if you don't know what an HDMI input is, we'll show you here in a second. And most TVs that have come out in the last maybe 20 or so years will pretty much all have an HDMI input. Some of them even have 2 or 3 of those. If you have an older TV that's older maybe than 10, 20 years, it's possible you wouldn't have that input. So you may need to upgrade a TV or not. It just depends. But we'll show you what those look like and how to identify those ports. You'll need a streaming device. And here's kind of a picture of some of those. We'll go into more detail about the differences between some of these. But usually it's a small device you plug into that TV, and then you'll come with a little remote, and that'll let you control your TV and control what you're watching, kind of like the remote you have for your TV now. And then lastly, you will need an email account. Pretty much all the streaming services you will sign up via your email address. And then you'll need a credit card for the ones that do cost money. We'll talk about it later, but there are some streaming services that are free. They're not subscription based. You will not probably need a credit card for those. But a lot of them, depending on the programming you want to watch and what you're into, some of them do have a subscription, and you will need to enter, credit card info to sign up for that service.
All right, so like Nathan was mentioning, you'll need a reliable connection to get your streaming, to work properly. So, a typical stream of, let's say Netflix, that is going to take, between 8 to 10 megabits per second, per stream. So that'd be per TV, per computer. Live streaming, and we'll get into that a little bit later, something like a Hulu Live or YouTube TV, that's going to take between 15 to 20 megabits per second, per stream. And then some of you may have or have heard of a 4K television, and that type of stream does take a little bit more as well. That's going to be around 24 to 30 megabits. And another thing that you'll need is an up-to-date router, and that's just a router that's capable of keeping up with these types of streaming. So one thing that we highly recommend is using the speed test that we have on our website. And a lot of times you'll get your bill, from whoever you have your internet company through, and it's going to tell you, roughly or up to how many megabits per second you can get. But you won't really know for sure until you use a speed test to see if you're actually getting that or you're getting close to that. So we definitely recommend using that and taking advantage of that link there.
So we talked about your TV. You're needing that HDMI input as I described. So here shows kind of in this picture on the left, it shows kind of what that HDMI input looks like. A lot of you may be thinking to yourself, well, I happen to own a smart TV, or I may buy a smart TV. We actually do recommend, even if you own or buy a smart TV, a lot of times you're actually better off getting a streaming device, and we'll talk about the streaming devices here soon, and plugging that into your smart TV. A smart TV is capable of doing some of the streaming stuff we've talked about, but the streaming devices that we're going to talk about, those usually run faster, they're a little bit more reliable, they have more updates, they just seem to work a little better than the built-in smart TVs. So streaming devices. So I've used that word a few times, and there's pretty much 4 big companies when it comes to streaming devices. There's Roku and Amazon Fire. Amazon obviously owns the Amazon Fire. Roku is its own company. Those are probably the overall most popular. And the devices are actually pictured here on the left, the Roku up top and the Amazon Fire here. As you notice, a lot of these will look pretty similar, and they operate very similarly as well. They typically will come in with a part that plugs into your TV, and then they'll usually come with a remote as well to control that. You can actually program it to control your TV as well. Then you'll also have an option of Apple TV or Google Chromecast, and those are pictured here. And the advantage to some of that is if you are a big Apple person or iPhone person, you have iPhones, you have iPads, you have Mac computers, you really use a lot of Apple products. Some people do prefer staying in that Apple kind of family and getting the Apple device because it is kind of built for Apple users. Similarly, if you are a Google user, you use a Gmail a lot, you have maybe a Google or Android cell phone, and you really prefer that kind of system, then the Google Chromecast may be what's better for you. So these devices operate kind of like your cable or satellite box would. So for those of you that said I have cable or I have satellite, you probably have a set-top box set up by your TV that has a cable run to it, and then it's plugged into your TV that way. You can think of these kind of like those set-top boxes. They'll come with their own remote, they'll plug in. The big difference and the big advantage with these is you don't have to have a line running from outside through the walls, through your house to the different floors or different rooms of your TV. You don't actually have to run that line to these devices. These run on Wi-Fi, so they are wireless. They're built to use your internet, the Wi-Fi that you have set up in your house. You'll need power to these. They'll need to have their own power, and they'll plug into your TV. But you don't have to run a cable from your satellite dish or your cable outside. You don't have to run a hard line to connect all of these. And then lastly, these devices are a one-time cost per each TV. So you would buy one of these for each TV one time. There's no monthly cost for these devices. We'll talk about in a minute some of the services you can get with these devices. There may be a monthly cost. But just to get these devices, you would need to purchase them one time. And then depending on how many TVs you want to use for streaming, you'll need to purchase one for each TV.
So now we're going to kind of talk about what's available to you. And I mean, as you can see, just about everything. You know, from your local channels to sports channels to the cable television packages or dish packages that you may be used to. I mean, the options are wide open. Many of you may be familiar with these. Some might be a little bit new to you. And that's the nice thing with streaming. You can pick and choose, like Nathan said, you can customize it to what makes the most sense for you. And you can always, you know, start one. Maybe when you're done with it, you can hop onto another one. You can keep them. You can use them month to month. So yeah, very flexible. And then there's types of streaming services, kind of like categories, and we kind of have that broken down here. So on the left-hand side here, we have your live with local channels, as well as kind of a comprehensive package similar to Dish or your DirecTV would offer. And those are big ones, you know, YouTube TV, Hulu Live, DirecTV Stream. A lot of these have, I mean, between 80 and 100 plus channels. It's something that you can customize. You can look to see which one of these has what you're looking for. And then you have in the middle there, like Nathan was saying, you have free options. So these you can download with your Roku, with your Amazon Fire Stick, and these are streamable for free. They are advertised based, so very much like your antenna TV. There's commercials every now and then. Same thing applies here, and you can see these local channels. Some of you may be familiar with those. A lot of those have free options. And then on the right-hand side here, we have kind of our premium streaming, and these are more movies and TV shows. I'm sure Netflix is, the one you've probably heard of the most. They have their own shows, their own movies. They have a lot of shows that you've heard of in the past that they have on their platform. Disney Plus, it's all Disney. It's all your cartoons, your Marvel movies. A lot of original content has been coming out in the past few years as well. And then these are things that you can maybe combine. So, for instance, I have YouTube TV, and I have a few of these other ones as well. So it's not limited to just one or two. And if you're like Nathan, you can just have all of them. So yeah, very flexible. You can kind of see pricing-wise. The live with the local channels, kind of ranges between $55 and $80 a month. Your individual movie/TV shows, kind of that $5 to $20 range. So it's all about what you're looking for, and then also what you're wanting to spend per month.
We talked about how to stream, why you would stream. Here's some kind of overall tips if you are looking to do streaming. First, as we mentioned before, we recommend getting a streaming device instead of a smart TV. Now, you can still buy a smart TV. A lot of TVs nowadays, almost all of them will be quote-unquote smart TVs. So you don't have to search for one that's not a smart TV. But if you get a smart TV, we would still recommend you getting one of these devices and plugging it in. You can still use the device, even if it's a smart TV. It still works great. The one exception, as I mentioned earlier, is if your TV has a Roku TV or Amazon Fire TV built in. So they're not just saying that they're smart. They're saying this has Roku or this is Amazon Fire. Those are built pretty well to do streaming right away. You typically won't need to buy a separate streaming device because that software is built mainly for streaming. It should work very well and kind of be built for that. So that's the exception to not necessarily have to buy one of those devices. Here's another thing we would do. If you're thinking about making the switch, you have cable or you have satellite, internet or TV, and you're thinking about making the switch, I may look into some different companies. We would recommend making a list of all the networks or shows that you typically watch. So you watch a lot of NBC, you watch Sunday Night Football, or you watch a lot of ESPN because you like sports, or you watch a lot of Hallmark because you like a lot of movies. To make a list of all the channels you typically watch, or the people in your house watches, you, your spouse, kids, anybody like that. Once you have that list, then you can really start comparing the different companies and say, okay, well, this company has most of my channels. This company has all my channels. I may prefer the one that has all my channels. There are times where you have to kind of compromise and say, well, this one has more than the other one. It costs a little bit more, but that's worth it to me. For example, there's this really great website. It's called thestreamable.com. You can actually plug in the channels that you watch, and it'll kind of show you what company might have those channels. And then last tip we'd like to give you here, and some of this is on that piece of paper, that resource guide as well. If you are streaming video and you're experiencing what's called buffering, what that means is you're trying to watch a video, and for some reason that video either keeps stopping and showing a little loading screen, or it's not loading because it's taking forever, or it's really choppy and it's not working very well. Well, that means you're experiencing what's called buffering. And that could be a couple things. It could be how many TVs that are being watched at one time. How many people are using the internet? We talked about how much internet speed you need to do some of this stuff. Well, if you have a smaller internet package with your internet provider, and you have 5 people trying to watch at the same time, well, you might not have enough internet to do that. So that could be causing it. Is your equipment up to date? And then lastly, it could be the service that you're trying to use. So just like any company or any service, there are times where the company that you're trying to use, they may be experiencing their own problems. They may be having a temporary issue where it's not loading very well, it's running slow. We encourage you to check, if you're trying to watch, for instance, this company's Hulu, if you're trying to watch that and you're experiencing issues, you can go to their website. Typically, all these companies will have kind of a help center or a part of their website dedicated to people that are experiencing issues. So we recommend checking there as well, just to make sure everything on their end is working, because sometimes it's different things that are causing problems.
Thank you for watching. For more about streaming, visit vibrantbroadband.com/vibrantu/streaming.